Those Friday night lights will soon be blazing all across Oklahoma. Yes, the high school football season is upon us. And around here, it promises to be a season with as many great blue chip players as we've ever seen. But it'll also be a year of change with expanded classifications and more champions being crowned. So there's lots to discuss, and no one better to talk about all of this with than Oklahoman high school sports reporter Jordan Davis. He's coming up on the Jenni Carlson Show. But before we get to that, I want to encourage you to subscribe. First, to my YouTube channel, at Jenni-Carlson. Just hit that subscribe button. It's easy and it's free, but it really helps me a bunch. So please subscribe today. Then I hope you'll subscribe to my website, Beyond the Box Score. You can subscribe for free, or if you want to support my work, you can do so for $8 a month. I hope you consider subscribing, no matter what level, at jennicarlson.substack.com. Well, Jordan, hey, thanks for joining me. First time guest. I'm really happy to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm always excited to come give a helping hand and, just give a little bit more insight on the high school sports because everything is starting to ramp up now. It's starting to be a crazy time of the year, obviously.
Boy, is it, no doubt. Hey, before we jump into looking at some of these high school players, some of these teams, this is obviously a different season for high school football in Oklahoma with the expanded classifications. You've got split classes now in 2A, A, and B, like we have seen in C for the in 6A for the last few years. Mm. What's your sense of just how people are feeling about, crowning 3 more champions in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, there are mixed opinions on it, obviously. Like, there are some people that are, are all for it. They're like, we'll some of these top teams, like, obviously in the 2A, and when you look at 2A, when you look at Washington and Millwood, have been atop of, actual 2A for the past 10 years, past at least 5 years, obviously. Yeah. You look at teams like that, and they're like, this is our chance to, actually get a chance to compete for championships, really. And with Millwood and Washington in the same side, they're both in 2A1. There will be opportunity for other teams. Even Kiefer is still in 2A1. These are 3 of the top teams in 2A last year. And they'll just be in 2A1. So that means 2A2 open up for grabs now. So that's another championship. You talk about there being 2 Class B championships as well. I've heard mixed things. I've heard people who, like I said, are, open to the idea of it and want to see how it goes. And there's obviously people that just don't like change and like, I don't know how that's going to be. We're giving out participation trophies or whatnot. So I've heard both sides of it, but I personally think it is for the better. I mean, why not? Why not give a lot of these, small town teams, especially, the opportunity to win a state championship, especially when, with the transfer portal and whatnot and everything that's going on with Rule 8. It gives just more opportunities for people to call themselves champions and compete and even get scholarship offers as well because they're playing at their next level going to UCO this year. So I think it's a good thing. I don't know how everybody feels about it, but like I said, I've seen mixed opinions on it.
Well, it's going to make for an even bigger and better championship weekends at UCO. So that's going to be fun. Even more games for people to go watch teams win championships. Speaking of, as we think about that end game, the champions that will come in December, is there a class out there, classification that you feel like is the toughest, the most stacked, the class that's really going to be, whoever comes through it is going to have really proven themselves?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think I've been saying that a lot, talking to people ahead of the season. But in my opinion, I think Class 6A1, like it has been for the past few years, but especially this year. I mean, when you just look at the talent and you look at people that have transferred around and seeing big moves. I mean, obviously, Bixby has been the best team in the state for at least the last 5 years, and they're the top of 6A1. But you look at the rest of the teams now. I mean, Jenks, I feel like I don't think people are sleeping on Jenks, but I believe they transferred in 10 players. Offensive, most of them, or at least half of them, offensive and defensive linemen, and then they now have some additional help in the secondary. I think Jenks, and on top of that, they have who I think is the best running back in the state with Caden Jones back there. And now, again, you give him some offensive linemen, and they could really go, in my opinion, this year. So, I mean, you look at Jenks, you look at Deer Creek, who's returning Grady Adamson, who now has Lamar Davis back, who originally started at Deer Creek, that went to Millwood, and he's back there more. Tulsa Union, Owasso, Norman North, Santa Fe. I mean, these are some really good programs. I really think that you just 6A1, I mean, it's just stacked top to bottom. And, I've talked to other schools and other people that are in different classes or even different divisions of 6A. And, they're like, man, I'm glad that I'm not in 6A1 because it's some really tough competition, especially at the top. So, yeah, of course, Bixby is the favorite like they always have been. But this could be a year we might see another team really push them and give them some troubles to be able to take those state championships away. At least four.
Yeah, that leads to my next question, because Bixby has been such a sure thing to win a championship, no matter what class they've been in.
Yeah.
So maybe they don't fit the answer to this question anymore, but who's the team you're most sure will be a state champion by the end of this year?
I mean, it's always easy to say Carl Albert. I mean, it just you just look at Mike Dunn's dominance. I mean, we're going to talk about later in the show some of the Super 30 guys, but they had by far the most Super 30 guys out of the Oklahoman Super 30 this summer. And they usually, tend to have, some really good guys, especially with the Carl Albert, the OU pipeline over there. But yeah, like I said, it's really easy to say Carl Albert. But when you look at elsewhere, I mean, in my opinion, it's not that easy. So to answer your question shortly, yes, Carl Albert probably is the easiest. Yeah. Yes, or even, like I said, Bixby. Those two, again, been powerhouses for the last 5 to 10 years in Oklahoma. So it's always going to be easier for them. But you just look at the landscape everywhere else. I mean, 3A, you don't know what's going to happen there with Heritage Hall. They've been kind of the powerhouse there. And now Eddie Bass is gone. Their top receivers, Jordan Harris and Rashad Smith, are gone. So, you never know what's going to happen in 3A with Lincoln Christian coming back looking for more. 2A, again, same thing with the split with Millwood and Washington. And I'm not too familiar on the top teams in 2A2 yet. I'm going to actually do a write-up on them soon. But same thing with 4A. It's always Wagner and Blanchard there. So, yeah, you never know. 6A2 also as well is it's a toss-up there too. So, yeah. I'm not – like I said, short answer, Carl Albert.
Yeah. Well, it's safe after the amount of championships they've won in the last decade and overall, too. But you mentioned earlier Jinx as being maybe, because of Bixby's dominance, a little bit of a don't sleep on Jinx. But is there a team maybe even that is even more under the radar that you think might surprise, just from what you've heard of talent or, just expectation of who you think might be a surprise champion?
6A2 in 6A2. I don't know if Putnam City's going to win it all, but I am big on Putnam City this year. I went to their practice
Pirates
a few days ago. Yes, with Coach Alexander there, and they have a lot of some really good talent on the defensive side of the football. Now they have a transfer now, Mikael Ford, who plays defensive back for them, who's committed to Nevada recently. And talking to Coach Alexander, we've spoken a lot over the past few weeks, and he's really pushed and been really hyping up the addition of him and how he's only been there for practice, only been going for a week. But, obviously he's been there since, I believe, February, January. So he's been in the weight room with them, been building chemistry with his teammates. And he says he's going to be the defensive captain for them this year. So you have a guy like that here alongside Braden Knox, who's going to play edge rusher for them this year, that's committed to Tulsa. They have a lot of high flyers and, playmakers in that secondary especially the secondary with Gabriel Osborne and Elijah Asbury, Savion James. I mean, they just have a ton of names. And Coach Alexander's son, Tripp, who's going to be beside, who's basically going to be the starting middle linebacker for them this year with Braden Knox moving the edge. And, you just look at their schedule. They play Choctaw in week 4 or 5, and they could easily go into Choctaw on the road and be undefeated by that time. I mean, just the way that their schedule lines up, 6A2 not being as hectic as 6A1 is, and they have a really good chance to, I believe, to turn some heads. We did a 6A2. I did the 6A2 storylines preview the other day, and I wrote about Putnam City a lot in that, and just the fact that I feel like they could really turn a lot of heads. By the end of the year, we could see them with 7 wins and, be one of those top 3 teams in 6A2. I don't think that that's crazy to say, and I do think that they're being overlooked by a lot of teams right now.
That's interesting. Well, you mentioned earlier Carl Albert and their greatness, and they do have a ton of individual talent. You guys at the Oklahoman did your summer Super 30, which every year I know has its challenges, but man, there's a lot of really good players in the state this year. But several Carl Albert guys, and Tristan Haynes at the top of the Super 30, the cornerback who's committed to OU. Why did he elevate to the top instead of some of these other great players that are out there in the state?
I think it's really when you just look at So obviously Super 30s is based on recruiting and, some of the offers that you get, and him and CJ Nixon by far just, they're kind of in my opinion, in a class of their own. I mean, these are two guys that are getting multiple SEC offers besides Caden Jones, again, who's I feel like is the best running back in the state. After this year might be the best player in the state. But specifically about Tristan Haynes, I mean, yeah, this is a guy SEC offers. He's getting offered by some of the best programs in the country: Alabama, Georgia, OU, Oklahoma State. Just pretty much, he pretty much had, kind of, and for him to be a defensive back at that, and just have, be able to have the wherewithal and be able to choose wherever he wants to go to school. I think that's what separated him. And then, like I said, him and CJ Nixon kind of were up for grabs for that last spot, and CJ Nixon was second. But just his impact on both sides of the football. I mean, obviously, both of them, CJ Nixon plays tight end for Weatherford as well, not just edge rusher. But, Tristan Haynes was, dominant on both sides of the ball, even in the kick returning space, returning kicks for touchdowns, multiple touchdowns this year, multiple defensive interceptions, and multiple defensive touchdowns. Offensively, had over 900 yards receiving for them, and, over 40 catches for them this year. So it was, in my opinion, I felt like he kind of just was the guy. Like, he's the clear number one player in the class this year, in my opinion. And when you, like you said, for the rest of the Super 30, Carl Albert, Marcus James, Trinae Washington, those type of guys, they really make a difference for Carl Albert. And, to have that amount of top-tier talent, all three of them going to OU, it really does make a difference.
Yeah. One of your top guys, Jaden Nickens, number 5 in the Super 30, was at Millwood, then was at Douglas. And I'm sure within the time that you guys started the series and finished it was when news started to come out that he was transferring. He's moved to a school in California. But what a great talent. And what's the impact of his move, and how does that sort of reshuffle things as it relates to this great class of individual talent?
So, I mean, obviously, Jaden was one of the few 4-star recruits that we have in football here. And I think by the end of the year, obviously, I feel like we're going to have a lot of players who have already committed, obviously, that I feel like by at least, just being honest, by at least October or November, we'll decommit, open up the recruiting back up, because just truth be told, we have so much talent in Oklahoma that a lot of these players might go from 3-star to 4-star. And we might even, the two players we just talked about, Tristan Haynes and CJ Nixon, they might go from 4 stars to 5 stars. So right. Who knows? I mean, but specifically with Jaden, I look at the impact that it has on a program like Millwood. Like, I was at Millwood's practice yesterday, got a chance to see, Xavier Thompson, who was also on our Super 30, he was number 30 there. And, now they have an addition. They added a receiver from Atlanta, Georgia, named Gabriel Bivens, who is going to be, I feel like, I walked into the practice yesterday and I'm like, who is that guy? I'm seeing him, run these certain routes and, make diving catches. And, this is inside. Like, when we were inside the facility, because it was raining and whatnot yesterday, he was going 100%. So I'm like, who is this guy? But but specifically, we just look at, I think that initially it does kind of impact Millwood, but they have so many playmakers over there that who knows, it might not leave that big of an impact, even though he's a great player, obviously, both on the football field and on the basketball court. So, but yeah, I mean, I think he obviously a great player for Millwood last year, just a great player, like I said, in both aspects of football and basketball. So, I don't know how big of an impact we'll have to see. Basically, that's basically what I'm saying. We'll have to see what the impact will be.
As you've talked about some of these great players, we've talked about cornerback, defensive end, running backs, wide receiver. There's been a lot of different guys, as we've talked about some of those top guys at different positions, but you all at the Oklahoman did a top players at each position look. Mm-hmm. Was there a position that was most difficult, most stacked to pick who those best were in this year?
Yeah, I think so. I did the running backs. Me and Nick Sardis, we divvied up the responsibilities for that, and I got a chance to pick the running backs. And first, I thought it would be kind of easier because you kind of know who the top talent is, like I said. But yeah, you go through and just actually look and see like some of who had X amount of rushing yards and X amount of touchdowns and X amount of yards per carry. It's really hard to do because it's a lot of talented people. I mean, I probably had about, this list is only 10 players, but I probably had about 20 running backs that we chose from for this list. all 10 of these running backs, I mean, are guys that, not only have produced in the past and are looking to produce some more, but some of these guys are transferring schools, are going from, one place to another, or one, I guess you could say, lesser known school to one bigger known school. So their impact will be big, such as most notably for me is PJ Wallace, who's going from Bartlesville to Muskogee. And obviously Muskogee just won the defending 6A2 champion. But then you add a guy now who's rushed for 1,700 yards and 15 touchdowns a year ago. You add him to offense like that. You add a guy like LT Simmons to Carl Albert from Choctaw. I mean, another guy who had 11 touchdowns last year, catching, running out the backfield and catching as a pass catcher and as a wideout somewhat or in the slot. He had 11 total touchdowns last year. I think he had 500, at least 500 rushing yards, but then you add in receiving. And, how Carl Albert gets down with all the talent that they have over there. So, and that's a speedy guy who can really make a difference in general. And then, you just look at, like I said, I already talked about Caden Jones already from Jenks, Caden Knighton from Pauls Valley, who's committed to Baylor. He's a guy who ran for 2,000 yards last year. Same thing, Damaris Thomas at Edmond Santa Fe. Just the depth, like I said, at running back that we have here in Oklahoma. It really surprised me, shocked me when you actually, again, go stat for stat, player by player, put them beside each other. And you just look at all that and everything that comes with it. I do think running back is the deepest class that we have for actual positions.
Yeah. You mentioned Carl Albert getting that transfer. I was going to ask you about Kevin Sperry leaving Carl Albert, but I'm not even going to go there because they got so many guys talented. I know they got a transfer quarterback too. So I'm not even going to talk about that because I don't think anybody's worried about the Titans this year.
Yeah.
As we sit here, though, Jordan, we're getting ready to have scrimmages. It's a bit heavy scrimmage week, and then obviously we'll transition right into week 0 and actual games. Tell me about, from your perspective, if you were going to tell somebody, hey, if you want to see a bunch of teams, you want to see a bunch of talent, is there a scrimmage happening that people might want to get on their radar?
Yeah, Jenks. Jenks is having scrimmages, I believe, next Friday.
Okay.
Don't quote me. It's either for Thursday or Friday. And yeah, there's a lot of East Side talent over there. I believe Union will be there. I know for a fact Choctaw will be there. Obviously, Jenks will be there. And I believe Edmond Santa Fe will be there. So those are 4 of the top teams in 6A and 6A2 that will be able, 6A1 and 6A2, that will be just in one spot scrimmaging against each other. So obviously there's a few others. I know that Carl Albert is having a tournament of some sorts on Friday, next Friday. And it's a few other places. We're doing a schedule release for all the scrimmages throughout the rest of the week. So, we'll report on that more so this upcoming week. But like I said, Jenks over East, it's also, I think that is probably the top scrimmage with those 4 teams being able to be up there at once.
Sounds like a scrimmage that people might want to make the drive for. Make a night of it over in Tulsa and go check out some really great football. Hey, have you peeked ahead to those early weeks of games? Are there any games that are piquing your interest just yet of week 0, week 1?
I haven't got a chance. I know that there's a few. Like I said, I know there are teams that, like, for example, like not city area teams. I would say like Millwood is going to Texas and against one of the DeSoto teams, and Edmond Santa Fe, I believe, is playing against Jenks or Union, like actually officially. Don't quote me on these. I haven't done too much of the week 1 or
1 week at a time, right?
It's a lot going on right now. Like I said, with scrimmages coming up and practices that we're running around to, and I was at the OSSAA meeting. It's just been a lot for the past few days that we're trying to keep up with. So it's been tough. So like I said, we're putting up some of these district previews and class previews, and in those you'll see our games of the year or the key games to look for in those. More so than just flat out week 1. And we'll do games of the week throughout the week periodically, like we always do here at the Oklahoman with high school sports. So once week 0 comes up, you'll see a story like that from us with all of those games and all the best games slated that me and Nick choose. And I think we have a lot of, especially like you said, when you're looking at just talking to coaches in the past week, it's a lot of really good non-district games. 3A teams going to play 5A teams, 5A teams going down to play 2A teams and whatnot. And, so it's it'll be a lot of good games this year and a lot of, non-district games that will really turn a lot of people's heads.
You mentioned people can find all that stuff in the Oklahoman at oklahoman.com. There's a high school tab. They can check out all that stuff. But tell people, Jordan, just give us your social handles. Where can people follow you and find your stuff that way?
So I'm mainly on Twitter, or X as they call it now, jdavis34 _ jdavis34 _ just to be short. You can go there, find our stuff. I'm tweeting pretty much every day now with high school, with practice content and just a lot of content that we're putting out ahead of the season. We're doing a bunch of list of rankings and district previews. Like I said, right now, I believe today, Nick Sardis just put out the Class 5A district previews and district and class previews. Tomorrow, I'll be putting out Class 4A, 3A, 2A, 1, 2A, 2, and so on and so forth, as well as we're doing class rankings that'll start going up early next week as well. So you can go to our website, at Oklahoman.com or at Oklahoman.com, and go to that, like you just talked about, Jenni, the high school tab. And all of our content will be there. Everything, we're pushing out stuff every single day. I mean, like I said, I've been running around every single day. It's been tough, tiring, but it's just the job. So I'm loving it, though. It's been fun so far. So like I said, just check in with me on Twitter and X at jdavis34 _ and that's how you can find me.
And that's where people can lodge all their complaints about their rankings being too low, right?
Yes, you can. I'm open to all criticism. If you have any questions or you're curious on how one person is ranked over another and how we do about it, my DMs are open. My email is in my bio, or is on my page on our website as well. So if you have any quarrels with me, you can come directly to me and talk to me about it.
I love it. Hey, Jordan, thanks for coming on, and I hope this is just the first time, not the last time.
Thank you, Jenni. Anytime. Have me anytime.
All right. Thanks. Well, that's all the time we have for now, but please subscribe to my YouTube channel and my website, Beyond the Box Score. It's easy and it's free, but if you want to support my work financially, I would appreciate that too. You can do so at jennicarlson.substack.com. Also, you can find this episode and all episodes of The Jenni Carlson Show on your favorite podcast app. If you like what you hear, please leave a review. A quick word of huge thanks to my video dream team, Jacqueline Musgrove and Michael Lane. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.